I never thought I'd be the kind of man to find myself in this situation. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of believing that we were solid, that we had something unbreakable. I had met Sandra at a university party when we were both too young and too foolish to know what love truly meant. I was a law student, and she was pursuing a degree in psychology. I was instantly drawn to her, the way she laughed too loudly, her curly blonde hair, the mischievous glint in her eyes that seemed to promise adventure. We got married right after graduation. We were in love, hopelessly so. Our wedding was small but beautiful, held at a little chapel near the coast. We spent our honeymoon in Spain, where we stayed up late drinking cheap wine and making love under the stars. The early years were good. They were everything I'd hoped for. We built a life together, created a home filled with warmth and laughter. I became a lawyer, working long hours, climbing up the firm's ladder while she went on to become a school counselor, helping troubled teenagers find their way. She was passionate about her job, often bringing home stories of students whose lives she'd touched. And I was proud of her. She had a way of connecting with people, understanding them in ways I never could. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened. Maybe it was when the kids left for college, leaving us in a house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. Or maybe it was when I started working even longer hours, trying to provide a certain lifestyle, thinking that was what mattered. Looking back now, I can see the signs, the small, almost imperceptible changes. Sandra started dressing differently, spending more time in front of the mirror. I'd catch her smiling at her phone, quickly locking the screen when she saw me looking. She'd become more distant, distracted even when we were together. At night, she turned away from me, claiming to be tired or not feeling well. I tried to brush it off as paranoia. After all, we had been married for 2 decades. What could possibly be wrong? But then there were other moments, too. I'd come home and find her gone without any explanation. Her stories didn't always add up. They seemed rehearsed, as if she was feeding me lines she had practiced. A few times, I overheard her speaking in hushed tones on the phone, her voice dripping with excitement in a way that was both familiar and foreign to me. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was overthinking it all. But then there was the night she came home late, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off, said she'd run into an old friend. The doubt gnawed at me, but I swallowed it down, too afraid to confront the possibility that the woman I loved could be hiding something from me. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her, that there was something, or someone, else pulling her away from me. I was afraid to ask, afraid of what I might find out. But I was also afraid of doing nothing, of letting this growing distance between us expand until it became a chasm that could never be bridged. And so, I started watching her more closely, paying attention to the little things, the tiny inconsistencies in her stories. I felt like a stranger in my own home, always on edge, always wondering, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It wasn't long before I began noticing more of those little things, the subtle shifts that, in hindsight, seemed so obvious. Sandra had always been meticulous, someone who thrived on routine. But suddenly, her schedule was unpredictable. She'd leave the house early for a yoga class or come home late from work with vague excuses about staying behind to help a troubled student. Sometimes she'd say she was meeting a friend for coffee or a glass of wine, yet she never mentioned who these friends were, and I never saw any messages or calls that confirmed it. We stopped spending weekends together. Our date nights became infrequent, awkward affairs where she seemed distant, her mind somewhere else entirely. I'd ask her questions about her day, her students, her plans for the weekend, but her answers were brief, almost dismissive, as if she were irritated by my curiosity. I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had gone wrong. I tried to reach out, to rekindle the connection we once had. I planned a surprise getaway for the two of us, hoping to remind her of what we shared. She agreed to go, but during the entire trip, she seemed preoccupied, checking her phone constantly, sneaking off to take calls, her laughter sharp and artificial. At one point, I glanced at her screen and saw a message from someone named Tom. She quickly tilted her phone away, muttering something about work. Tom? I didn't remember her mentioning anyone by that name. I asked her, casually, who Tom was. Her response was quick. Too quick. Just a colleague, she said, brushing it off with a wave of her hand. But there was a flicker in her eyes, a split-second hesitation, and I knew she was lying. I started digging deeper. I went through her social media, her emails, anything that might give me a clue. But she was careful. Almost too careful. I couldn't find anything concrete, just vague hints and cryptic conversations that left more questions than answers. Then, one night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard her talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice was soft, intimate in a way that made my stomach twist. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. I waited for her to come back to bed, my heart racing in my chest, but she stayed out there for over an hour. When she finally returned, she slipped under the covers, her back turned to me, and pretended to sleep. The doubts turned into suspicions, the suspicions into paranoia. I couldn't concentrate at work. My mind kept drifting back to her. I became obsessed, analyzing every word, every gesture, every moment for clues. I started watching her more closely, taking note of when she left and when she came back, who she spoke to, how she looked when she did. And then there were the late-night texts. She'd slip out of bed to get some water, but I knew better. I could hear her tapping away on her phone, the screen casting a faint glow in the hallway. I felt like a fool, lying there in the dark, pretending to be asleep, listening to my own wife whisper secrets to someone else. One evening, I found myself outside her office, waiting in my car. I wanted to see if she really was working late like she said. An hour passed, then 2. I saw her leave, her hair tousled, her smile bright, like I hadn't seen in years. And then a man emerged behind her, a tall, dark-haired man with a confident stride. He reached out, touched her back, and they laughed together. She didn't see me as they walked to his car, her hand brushing against his. I clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt a wave of anger surge through me, but I didn't move. I just sat there, watching them drive away, wondering how long this had been going on, how long she had been deceiving me. I decided then that I needed to know more. I needed to find out who this man was and what he meant to her. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for whatever came next. I started following her more closely, searching for answers in the shadows of our life. And in that darkened car, with my breath fogging up the windshield, I felt the first crack in the foundation of our marriage, and I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. The night it all came crashing down started like any other. Sandra had been unusually quiet all day, lost in thought, her eyes distant. She was still in her bathrobe at noon, staring at the window like she was waiting for something, or someone. I knew she was planning something. I could feel it in the air, thick with tension, like a storm gathering strength. When she told me she was going out that evening, I didn't even bother to ask where. I simply nodded, pretending to be engrossed in a book I wasn't actually reading. Her voice was casual, almost too casual, like she was trying to convince herself that this was normal, that nothing was amiss. "I'm meeting some friends," she said, her tone light. "A girls' night out. You know, the usual." I nodded again, not trusting myself to speak. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched her disappear into the bedroom, her steps quick, almost eager. She came out a while later, dressed in a black dress I hadn't seen in years, the one that hugged her body just right, showing off curves I'd once explored with reverence. Her makeup was immaculate, her hair styled in loose waves that fell over her shoulders. She looked radiant, beautiful, the way she used to look when she got ready for our dates. And that's when she said it, her words cutting through the room like a knife. I just need this night to prove to myself that I'm still attractive to other guys. I froze, my book slipping from my hands. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. Her eyes met mine, a challenge in them, almost daring me to react, to say something. What? I managed to choke out, my voice sounding foreign, like it belonged to someone else. I'm going on a date tonight, she continued, her voice steady, determined. And if everything goes according to plan, I'll spend the night with him. For a moment, the world went silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, the air knocked out of me. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Stop fooling around, she said. There will be no divorce. I just need to do this, and then everything will go back to normal. I stared at her, disbelief mingling with a rage I'd never felt before. She was serious, dead serious. She had made up her mind. My wife, the woman I had loved for 20 years, was telling me she was going to cheat on me and expected me to accept it, to act like nothing had happened, like this was some phase she needed to get out of her system. Who is he? I demanded, my voice shaking, not from fear but from anger. I could feel it building inside me, a storm ready to erupt. Who's the guy? She smiled, a cold, detached smile that sent chills down my spine. It doesn't matter who he is. It's just one night. I need this. I've been feeling lost, unseen, and I need to prove to myself that I'm still desirable, that I still have it. I've been married to you for so long, and I just need to go out at least once to feel like I'm still alive. My stomach twisted into knots. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to shout, to tell her how insane this all sounded. But I couldn't find the words. Instead, I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching her as she gathered her things, her expression calm, almost serene, like she was simply going out to run an errand. You can't be serious, I finally managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I am, she replied, her tone final. I need this, and I'm going to do it. Just don't make a scene. Don't ruin this. When I come back, we can talk. But tonight is mine. And with that, she turned and walked out the door, leaving me standing there, my world crashing down around me. The sound of her heels clicking on the floor echoed through the house. And then, silence. An unbearable, suffocating silence. I felt a surge of panic, a desperation clawing at my insides. I couldn't just let her walk out like that. I couldn't let her go to him. I needed to know who this man was. I needed to see it for myself, to know the face of the man who was taking my wife from me. I grabbed my keys and rushed out the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I followed her car from a distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. She drove to a part of town I didn't recognize, to a small, dimly lit restaurant that looked like it belonged in a different city, a different life. She parked and walked inside, her head held high, her movements confident. And there he was, waiting for her, leaning against the bar, tall, with dark hair and a smile that seemed to light up the room. He reached out, took her hand, and pulled her in for a kiss, his hand resting possessively on her waist. I felt something snap inside me, something primal, something I didn't know existed. I wanted to burst in there, to rip him away from her, to scream, to fight, to make them feel the pain that was tearing me apart. But I didn't. I stayed in my car, paralyzed watching them, feeling the cold, hard truth settle in. This wasn't just a fling. This was betrayal, pure and simple, and I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. I sat there in the dark, my hands trembling as they gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding so violently it felt like it might burst from my chest. I couldn't take my eyes off them. Sandra and this man, this stranger, were laughing, lost in their own world. Her face was alight with a smile I hadn't seen in years, a smile that once belonged to me. They looked so comfortable, like they had done this 100 times before. I should have stormed in there. I should have confronted her, demanded an explanation, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen, locked in place by a paralyzing mix of rage, disbelief, and pain. I watched as they moved to a table in the corner, close, too close. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she threw her head back, laughing in a way that sent a stab of jealousy right through my chest. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. I pulled it out to see a text from Sandra. "Don't wait up. I'll be late." The casualness of her words, the sheer audacity of it, made my blood boil. She knew I was at home, clueless and waiting, and she didn't even care. She had already made her choice. And here I was, watching the scene unfold like a fool. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know who this man was, what kind of hold he had over her. I got out of the car, my movements stiff and mechanical, like I was moving through water. I walked towards the restaurant, my eyes fixed on them. I was close enough to see the way she touched his arm, the way he leaned in, their faces so close it made me sick. As I reached the door, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the handle. My mind was screaming at me to stop, to turn around, to walk away before it got any worse. But I had already come this far. I needed to see it, to feel the full weight of the betrayal. I pushed the door open, the bell above it chiming cheerfully, mocking me with its brightness. I stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. I felt every set of eyes turn towards me, felt the tension in the room shift, as if they could all sense what was about to happen. Sandra saw me before I could say a word. Her face went pale, her smile slipping, replaced by something else. Panic, guilt, maybe even anger. She looked at me like I was the one who had done something wrong, like my very presence was an intrusion. "David," she said, her voice sharp, a mixture of surprise and irritation. "What are you doing here?" I ignored her question, my eyes boring into the man sitting across from her. He looked up at me, calm, almost amused, as if he knew something I didn't, as if he had already won. I felt my fists clench at my sides, my body trembling with a rage I didn't know I was capable of. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended, drawing the attention of the other patrons. The man raised his eyebrows, leaning back in his chair, still holding that infuriating smile. "I'm Tom," he said, his tone polite, almost friendly. "I guess you're David?" My heart sank. Tom. So, this was him, the name I'd seen on her phone, the ghost that had haunted me for weeks. I wanted to hit him, to wipe that smirk off his face. But instead, I looked back at Sandra, my eyes searching hers for something, anything that made sense. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice breaking despite my efforts to keep it steady. "Why are you here with him? Why would you do this?" Sandra sighed, running a hand through her hair, her expression hardening. "I told you, David. I need this. I've spent 20 years being your wife, being the good wife, the patient wife, and I needed to feel something different, something new. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what I need." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. There was no remorse, no apology, just a cold, clinical statement of what she wanted, and to hell with everything else. I felt the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, the humiliation burning on my cheeks. I could see everyone watching, their whispers like knives in my back. I wanted to shout, to scream, to drag her out of there and make her see what she was doing, what she was destroying. But I couldn't find the words. I could only stand there, my mouth opening and closing, like a fish out of water. Tom leaned forward, his smile fading, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of seriousness in his eyes. "Maybe this isn't the place for this conversation," he said softly, as if he was the reasonable one, the one with the answers. "Shut up," I snapped, my voice breaking. "You don't get to talk. You don't get to sit there and act like this is normal, like you've done nothing wrong." He didn't respond, just sat back and watched, his eyes flicking between me and Sandra, waiting to see what would happen next. And then, without another word, I turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I felt like I was drowning, my chest tight, my vision blurry. I stumbled to my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I drove away, I felt the hot sting of tears running down my face. I had seen it with my own eyes. She didn't love me anymore. Maybe she never did. I didn't know how to fix this, didn't know if I even wanted to try. I just knew that everything I thought I knew about my life had been ripped apart, and I had no idea how to put it back together. The pain was a living thing, clawing at my insides, tearing me apart. I wasn't sure how much more I could take, and yet, deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The drive home was a blur. The streetlights smeared together in my vision, and the world outside the windshield felt like a movie I wasn't a part of. I could barely grip the steering wheel, my fingers numb, my palms sweaty. My mind was reeling, replaying the scene over and over, the look in her eyes, the casual way she spoke about needing another man, needing a night with him. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I don't know how long I sat in the driveway once I got home, staring blankly at the front door. The house was dark, the porch light casting a faint glow on the welcome mat. Home, sweet home. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. How many times had I walked through that door, believing in those words, thinking that this was our safe haven? Now, it felt like a cruel joke. I finally forced myself to get out of the car, every movement feeling like a struggle. I fumbled with the keys, my hands still trembling, and let myself in. The silence was suffocating, the emptiness of the house weighing down on me. I tossed my keys on the counter and poured myself a drink. Whiskey, neat. I needed something, anything, to dull the pain that was ripping through me. I swallowed it in one go, the burn in my throat a welcome distraction from the ache in my chest. I felt anger coursing through my veins again, hot and wild, like a wildfire consuming everything in its path. I grabbed my phone and opened her messages. I stared at the texts from Tom, at their flirtatious back and forths that seemed so harmless at first. Now, they were poison, tainting every memory I had of our life together. Without thinking, I dialed her number. It rang once, twice, and then her voice came on the line, sweet and cheerful. "Hey, you've reached Sandra. Sorry I can't come to the phone right now." I hung up before the message ended, throwing the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a loud crack and fell to the floor. I felt the tears welling up again, hot and furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely and then just leave? Was this who she really was all along? Had I been blind, a fool this entire time? I poured another drink, my hands shaking so badly I spilled half of it on the counter. I didn't care. I needed the numbness, needed the alcohol to quiet the storm in my head. I sank down onto the couch, staring at the darkened TV screen, feeling the room spin around me. I wanted to smash everything, break it all, make the outside world match the chaos inside my mind. And then, through the haze of anger and whiskey, a new thought emerged, something darker, more primal. I needed to know more. I needed to understand how long this had been going on. I couldn't just let it end like this, with her walking out the door as if our life together meant nothing. I needed answers. I grabbed my laptop and opened her social media accounts. She hadn't been very active lately, but I went back through the months, searching for any sign, any hint of him. There were pictures from parties, work events, weekend getaways, all of them looking so innocent. But now, every smile, every glance seemed tainted, a potential lie. I found nothing at first, nothing that stood out. Then I noticed a comment thread on a photo from months ago, Sandra at some charity event, wearing that same black dress. There he was, Tom. Just a name in the comments, but his words were flirtatious, familiar. I clicked on his profile, my heart racing as I scrolled through his photos. There were dozens of pictures. He was good-looking, I'll give him that. Dark hair, piercing eyes, always dressed well, smiling like he owned the world. And then I found them. Pictures of Sandra. Not the kind that would immediately raise suspicion, but there was something in the way they looked at each other, a familiarity that sent a shiver down my spine. There were group shots at bars, dinners, a few candid photos of them laughing, standing too close. One of the captions read, "Great night out with the best crew," but my eyes were only on the two of them, side by side, her hand casually touching his shoulder. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. How had I not seen it before? How had I missed this? I stared at the screen, every picture a punch to the gut, every smile a dagger twisting deeper. I felt something dark and heavy settling in my chest, a sense of loss so profound it nearly knocked the breath out of me. I spent the rest of the night on that couch, my mind spiraling into dark places, my thoughts racing through every possibility, every memory, every moment that now felt like a lie. The whiskey bottle sat empty on the table, but the numbness never came. I tried to remember the last time we were truly happy, the last time I looked at her and felt like I was the center of her world. Had it all been a facade? Was our marriage just a convenient arrangement until she found something better, something newer, something more exciting? I glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m., and there was still no sign of her. My eyes felt heavy, but I knew I wouldn't be sleeping. Not tonight. Maybe not for a while. I couldn't stop thinking about her out there with him, in his arms, in his bed. I imagined their bodies entwined, their laughter, their whispers in the dark. And it was at that moment I realized that this betrayal wasn't just a passing affair. It was a wound, deep and raw, that would never fully heal. I was angry, broken, and lost, and as much as I wanted to believe otherwise, I knew I was standing on the edge of something irreversible, something that would change me forever. But the worst part? I knew she wasn't coming back tonight. And maybe, just maybe, she never would. The hours ticked by, and the house remained empty. I sat in the darkness, my head heavy with the weight of too many drinks, my body slumped into the couch as if gravity itself was trying to pull me through the floor. The quiet was maddening, filled with a buzzing in my ears, a white noise that matched the chaos in my head. I kept looking at the door, half expecting her to walk through it at any moment, to come back with some explanation that would make sense of all of this. But the door stayed shut. I don't know how many times I checked my phone, hoping for a message, some sign of life. I wanted to see her name flash on the screen, to hear her voice, even if it was just to tell me she was leaving for good. But there was nothing. Only the silence, thick and impenetrable. The hours felt like days, and as the night dragged on, the panic began to creep in. What if she didn't come back at all? What if this was it? I grabbed my phone again, scrolling through our text messages from the past few months. Her replies were short, often delayed. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it felt glaringly obvious. My thumb hovered over her name. I wanted to call her, to hear her voice, but I was afraid of what I'd hear on the other end of the line. Instead, I opened the messages again, rereading her last text. "Don't wait up. I'll be late." Those words seemed to mock me, dancing across the screen in a cruel, taunting rhythm. I threw the phone onto the coffee table, feeling the sharp edges of my frustration dig deeper. I needed to do something. Sitting there, drowning in my thoughts, wasn't helping. I got up, pacing the room, my mind a whirlwind of anger, fear, and something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I felt like I was on the edge of some great precipice, staring down into a void I had never imagined could exist in my marriage. I needed air, space, something to clear my head. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, stepping out into the cold night air. The street was quiet, the neighborhood asleep. I walked aimlessly, my feet moving without thought, my mind trying to make sense of everything. How had we ended up here? How had I missed the signs that seemed so obvious now? Every moment felt like a betrayal, every memory tainted by the knowledge of what she was doing right now. I could see them in my mind's eye, her and Tom, in some hotel room or maybe at his place, wrapped around each other like they were the only two people in the world. I felt sick, my stomach churning with jealousy and rage. I found myself standing outside a small park near our house. I had come here before with Sandra, back when we were younger, before the kids, when everything seemed simpler, clearer. I sat down on a bench, staring out at the empty playground. The swings moved slightly in the breeze, a creaking sound cutting through the silence. I pulled out my phone again, unable to stop myself. I typed a message, then deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. I couldn't find the right words. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to say. Did I want to beg her to come back? Did I want to scream at her for doing this to me? To us? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button, my heart pounding in my chest. I pressed it. The phone rang once, twice, and then went to voicemail. I swallowed, my throat dry, my voice shaky as I spoke. Sandra, it's me. I don't know what to say. I don't know what's happening or why you're doing this. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. Just come home. Please. I hung up, feeling a mix of relief and regret. I didn't know if I'd said the right thing or if there even was a right thing to say. I sat there, waiting, hoping she would call back. But the minutes turned into hours, and there was nothing. Just that same unbearable silence. I felt my anger flare again. I wanted to do something, to take control of the situation, but I felt powerless, like I was adrift in a storm with no way to steer. I thought about going back to that restaurant, finding her and dragging her out of there, demanding answers, but I knew it would only make things worse. Instead, I sat there, on that cold bench, staring out at the empty street, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the life we'd built, the love we'd shared. I wondered if it had all been a lie, if she had ever really loved me, or if I had just been a placeholder until something better came along. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I finally got up, my body stiff from the cold. I walked back home, feeling like a ghost haunting my own life. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar smell of our home wrapping around me like a cruel joke. And there, on the kitchen counter, was her wedding ring. I stared at it, my breath catching in my throat, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was the final confirmation, the last piece of the puzzle I had been trying so hard to put together. She hadn't even bothered to take it with her. She had left it behind, like a discarded token of a life she no longer wanted. I sank to the floor, the cold tiles pressing against my skin, and let the tears come. They were hot and bitter, a mix of rage and heartbreak. I cried until I had nothing left, until the tears dried up, and all that was left was a hollow emptiness. And in that moment, I knew. I had lost her. She had made her choice, and it wasn't me. I don't know how long I sat there, on the cold kitchen floor, staring at her wedding ring. Time seemed to stretch and blur, moments bleeding into each other. I felt numb, hollowed out by a pain so deep I wasn't sure if it would ever go away. My thoughts ran in circles, chasing each other like a pack of wolves, relentless and unyielding. I finally forced myself to get up, my body aching with every movement. I picked up the ring, feeling its cold weight in my palm. I couldn't believe it. This small circle of gold had once symbolized everything we were, everything we had promised to be. Now it felt like a dead thing, heavy with all the things we'd lost. I slipped it into my pocket, feeling its weight against my thigh, a constant reminder of what she had left behind. I wandered through the house, aimless, lost. Her clothes were still hanging in the closet. Her perfume still lingered in the air. The framed photos on the walls stared back at me. Moments frozen in time, moments that now felt like they belonged to someone else. There was one of us from our 10th anniversary, standing on a beach, arms wrapped around each other, smiling at the camera like we had all the time in the world. I wanted to smash that picture. I wanted to break it into a million pieces, to destroy every reminder of the love we had shared, the life we had built. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just stood there, staring at those smiling faces, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I found myself in the bedroom, the bed still unmade from the morning before. Her side of the bed was rumpled, the sheets thrown back carelessly, as if she had left in a hurry. I sat down on the edge, the mattress sinking under my weight. I ran my hand over the fabric, imagining her lying there, her hair splayed out on the pillow, her body warm and soft beside me. I could still smell her shampoo, the faint scent of lavender and honey that always lingered in her hair. A wave of anger surged through me, followed by an even stronger wave of despair. I wanted to scream, to shout, to let the pain out. But all I could do was sit there, my head in my hands, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. I needed to do something, to break free from this suffocating grief. I needed answers. I grabbed my phone again, my hands shaking as I scrolled through my contacts. I found her friend, Jessica, the one Sandra always went out with, the one she confided in. I hit the call button, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone rang twice before Jessica picked up, her voice cheerful. "Hey David, what's up?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Jess, I need to ask you something about Sandra." There was a pause on the other end, just a beat too long, before she replied, "Oh, okay. What's going on?" "She's not here," I said, my voice breaking. "She left last night and she hasn't come back. Do you know where she is? Have you heard from her?" Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her head, could feel her weighing her options, deciding how much to tell me. "David, I'm not sure where she is right now. She mentioned she might be staying with a friend, maybe taking some time to think things over." I clenched my jaw, frustration boiling inside me. "Jess, don't give me that. I know what's going on. I saw her with him, with Tom." Jessica sighed, and I could hear the tension in her voice. "Look, David, I don't want to get in the middle of this. I'm sorry you found out like this, but Sandra, she's been unhappy for a while. She's been feeling lost, trapped even. I don't think she knows what she wants anymore." I felt my heart twist, her words cutting deeper than any knife. "And you knew? You knew she was seeing him, and you didn't say anything?" She hesitated again. "I'm her friend, David. I tried to talk to her, tried to get her to figure things out, but she made her choice. I didn't want to betray her confidence. She said she needed time to find herself again, to feel something she hadn't felt in years." I closed my eyes, the room spinning around me. "Do you know where she is now?" Jessica sighed, her voice softening. "No, I don't. She told me she needed space, and I haven't heard from her since yesterday. I'm sorry, David, I really am." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jess." I hung up, feeling more lost than ever. I had hoped for answers, for some kind of clarity, but all I got were more questions, more doubts. I felt like I was sinking, pulled deeper into a darkness I couldn't escape. I didn't know what to do, where to go. I had thought about calling her parents, her other friends, but I wasn't sure what I'd say. How could I explain that I had no idea where my wife was, That she had just walked out on me after 2 decades together? I sat back down on the edge of the bed, feeling the tears prickling at my eyes again. I wanted to hate her, to despise her for what she had done, but all I could feel was an overwhelming sadness, a deep sense of loss that threatened to swallow me whole. And that's when I heard it, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. I waited, listening to the sound of footsteps approaching the front door. The knob turned, the door creaked open, and then, there she was. Sandra stepped inside, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed, her hair disheveled. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept, like the night had drained every ounce of energy from her. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment there was silence, a thick, unbearable silence that hung in the air like a heavy fog. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping her. "Don't," I said, my voice low, trembling with emotion. "Don't say anything, just tell me why. Why did you do this? Why him?" She looked down, her shoulders slumping, and for a moment I thought she might start crying. But when she looked back up, her eyes were hard, determined. "I did it because I needed to feel something, David. I needed to know that I was still alive, that I could still be desired, be wanted. I did it because I've been dying inside and I didn't know how to tell you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air leave my lungs, the room spinning around me. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how wrong she was, how selfish, how cruel. But I couldn't find the words. I could only stand there, staring at her, feeling my heart break all over again. She took a step towards me, her eyes pleading. "David, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know what else to do." I shook my head, my hands clenching into fists. "I don't understand, Sandra. I don't understand any of this. You were my wife. We had a life together. How could you throw it all away for this?" She didn't answer, just stood there, tears streaming down her face, her expression a mix of regret and defiance. And in that moment, I knew. There were no answers that would make this better, no words that would erase the pain. I turned away, unable to look at her any longer, feeling the weight of her betrayal crushing me from the inside. I didn't know what came next, didn't know how to fix this, or if it could even be fixed. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. Sandra didn't say anything more. She just stood there, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts, like she was afraid to speak, afraid to push me further. I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet, threatening to swallow me whole. I wanted to run, to get away from her, from this house, from everything we had built that now felt so unbearably fragile. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I finally said, my voice breaking, sounding small even to my own ears. "I don't know if I even want to." She flinched, like I had slapped her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she whispered. "I don't deserve it. I need you to understand why." "Why?" I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and hollow. "Why? You think there's a reason that would make this okay? That would make this less of a betrayal?" She shook her head, tears still streaming down her face. "No, I know there isn't. But I've felt so lost, David. For so long. I felt like I'm fading. Like I'm just existing. I needed to feel alive again. I didn't plan for this to happen with Tom. It just did. I felt a surge of anger rise up in me again, hot and fierce. You needed to feel alive? So you decided to kill everything we had? Everything we built together? Sandra's face crumpled, and she looked like she might collapse right there in front of me. "I know I've hurt you," she said softly. "I know I've destroyed something precious. But I swear, I never stopped loving you, David. Not for a second." I shook my head, feeling a cold, sharp pain in my chest. You don't do this to someone you love, I said, my voice trembling. You don't tear them apart just to make yourself feel better. She stepped closer, her hands reaching out as if to touch me, but I pulled away, the anger flaring up again, pushing her back. Don't, I warned, my voice low and raw. Don't come near me. She froze, her hands falling to her sides, her eyes wide with pain. David, please. I'm still your wife. I'm still the woman you married. No, I snapped, my voice a low growl. You're not. That woman is gone. You threw her away for, what? A night with some guy who made you feel good? You betrayed me, Sandra. You betrayed us. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. I don't want to hear it, I said. I don't want to hear any more excuses. I need space. I need time to think. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. David, don't leave. Please, we can figure this out. We can find a way. I turned away, shaking my head. I don't know if there's anything left to figure out, I muttered. You made your choice. Now I need to make mine. I could hear her soft sobs behind me, could feel her pain in the air, but I kept walking. I needed to get out, to breathe, to escape the suffocating weight of her betrayal. I grabbed my keys. Off the counter, my movements hurried, frantic, like I was afraid she might try to stop me. David, she cried, her voice choked with tears. Please, don't go. Please. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, my heart torn in two. Part of me wanted to turn around, to hold her, to tell her we would find a way through this. But the other part, the part that was hurt, angry, betrayed, couldn't stand the thought of being near her right now. I just need some time, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. I don't know how long. I need to get away from here. She didn't say anything, just stood there, her face crumpled with grief, her hands trembling at her sides. I turned the knob and stepped out into the cool morning air, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. I got into my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I looked back at the house we had bought together, filled with so many memories. The place that had once been my sanctuary now felt like a prison, filled with the echoes of her betrayal. I didn't know where I was going, didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to get away, to put some distance between myself and the pain that was tearing me apart. I started the engine and drove, my eyes focused on the road ahead, my mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts, each one more painful than the last. I drove for hours, the scenery changing around me as I left the city and headed out into the countryside. I felt like a ghost, like I was drifting through my own life, untethered and lost. I didn't know what I was looking for, didn't know if there was anything out there that could help me find my way back to some semblance of normalcy. Eventually, I pulled over at a small motel on the edge of a quiet town, its neon sign flickering in the fading light. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, staring at the building, feeling the emptiness inside me growing. I didn't want to go inside, didn't want to face the reality of what had happened, but I knew I couldn't keep driving forever. I checked in, the clerk barely glancing up from his phone as he handed me the key. The room was small and smelled faintly of mildew, the bedspread worn and faded. I collapsed onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling, feeling the full weight of everything settle over me like a shroud. I pulled out my phone and looked at her name in my contacts, my thumb hovering over the call button. I wanted to hear her voice, to ask her why again, to try to make sense of this madness. But I couldn't bring myself to press it. I knew that hearing her would only make it worse, would only deepen the wound that was already bleeding out inside me. Instead, I put the phone down and closed my eyes, trying to block out the images that kept flashing through my mind. Sandra and Tom, their bodies close, their lips meeting in a kiss that should have been mine. I felt the tears come again, hot and relentless, and I didn't try to stop them. I cried until I had nothing left, until the exhaustion took over and I slipped into a restless, dreamless sleep. And in the darkness, I felt the cold emptiness of loss, the harsh reality of what I had lost, and I wondered if I would ever find my way back from this, if there was any way to heal from a betrayal this deep. And as the night wore on, I realized I didn't know the answer. Not yet, not now, and maybe not ever. The next morning, I woke up in that small, musty motel room with a weight in my chest that felt like it might crush me. The sun streamed through the thin curtains, casting weak, dusty rays across the faded carpet. For a moment, I felt disoriented, unsure of where I was or how I had ended up here. Then, like a punch to the gut, it all came flooding back, the betrayal, the rage, the helplessness that had driven me to this place. I stared at the ceiling, my mind clouded with the remnants of the previous night's pain. I had no answers, no plan, no idea of what to do next. My head throbbed with a dull ache, a combination of too much whiskey and too little sleep. I sat up slowly, feeling the stiffness in my limbs, and glanced at the clock. It was nearly noon. I reached for my phone, almost without thinking, and saw several missed calls and texts from Sandra. I hesitated for a moment before opening the messages. They were desperate, pleading. "David, please, I need to talk to you. I'm so sorry, I don't know what to do. Please come home. Please, just answer me. I can't lose you." I felt a wave of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, longing. I didn't know if I wanted to scream at her or hold her or just disappear forever. I couldn't stay in this limbo any longer, couldn't bear the weight of this pain without doing something, anything. I needed closure. I needed to confront her, to face her, and find out what was left of us, if anything. I made up my mind then and there. I grabbed my keys, tossed a few bills on the motel counter, and headed out. The drive back felt longer than it had been the night before, the road stretching out endlessly before me. Every mile brought me closer to the confrontation I knew was waiting for me. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, what I even wanted to hear. I just knew I had to face her. When I pulled into the driveway, the sight of our house, our home, made my stomach twist with anxiety. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the front door, the door that now felt like a barrier between my old life and whatever was left. Finally, I took a deep breath and got out, walking slowly to the door. I opened it and stepped inside. Sandra was sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment, we just stared at each other, the silence thick and heavy between us. "David," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I didn't think you'd come back." I closed the door behind me, leaning against it, needing the support. "I don't know why I did," I replied, my voice cold, distant. "Maybe I'm just looking for answers, or maybe I'm just looking for a way to say goodbye." Tears welled up in her eyes again, and she stood up, taking a step toward me. "David, please, don't say that. I know I hurt you. I know I've done something unforgivable, but I'm begging you to listen to me." I raised a hand, stopping her. "I've done enough listening, Sandra. I've spent the last 20 years listening, trusting, believing in you, and then you threw it all away." She shook her head, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean to, David. I swear I didn't mean to. I was lost. I was confused. I was so unhappy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought if I could feel something different, maybe I could find a way back to myself. But I was wrong." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "Wrong? That's an understatement. You didn't just hurt me, Sandra. You broke me. You shattered everything I thought I knew about us, about you. I loved you. I still love you, but I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She reached out, her hand touching my arm, her touch warm, familiar. Please, David, let's try. Let's go to counseling. Let's talk. I'll do anything, anything to make this right. Just don't leave me. Don't give up on us. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the fear in her eyes, the regret, the desperate hope. I saw the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago, the woman who had been my partner, my friend, my everything. And I saw the stranger she had become, the one who had betrayed me in the most personal way possible. I don't know if I can, I said softly, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. Her face crumpled, and she sank to her knees, sobbing. Please, David, I love you. I don't want to lose you. I can't lose you. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, hot and painful. I don't want to lose you either, I admitted. But I already have. The moment you chose him over me, over us, you lost me. And I don't know if I can ever find my way back to you. She reached out, her fingers brushing mine, her touch tentative, pleading. Please, she whispered, give me a chance. Give us a chance. I looked at her, at the woman who had been my wife for 20 years, who had been my everything. I felt the weight of her betrayal, the sting of her words, the pain of her actions. I wanted to hold her, to tell her that we could fix this, that love could conquer all. But I wasn't sure if it could. I pulled my hand away, stepping back, feeling the tears sting my eyes. I need time, I said. I need time to figure out if there's anything left worth saving. She nodded, her sobs quieting, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I'll wait, she whispered. I'll wait as long as it takes. I turned and walked out of the house, my heart heavy, my mind spinning. I didn't know where I was going, didn't know what the future held. All I knew was that I needed to find myself again, to find a way to heal from this wound, to decide if I could ever forgive her. I didn't look back as I walked away, the door closing behind me with a soft click, the sound of finality. I didn't know if I would ever return, if I could ever rebuild what had been destroyed. But for now, I knew I needed to be alone, to find my own way forward, to figure out who I was without her. And as I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a strange sense of relief, a weight lifting from my shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, there was a future for me out there, beyond the pain, beyond the betrayal. A future where I could find peace again, even if it wasn't with her.